Welcome to the Saturday Cadence podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football.
It is time for the national championship game between Indiana and Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. Miami gets this game in their home stadium. It'll be their building on Monday night. And regardless of the outcome of this game, a great story is going to get to be told. But will it be from the Indiana side or the Miami side? Welcome back to Saturday Cadence. After a little bit of a break, have not missed a show in over 3 years, but we were taken out by the flu, didn't have a voice. It was quite a time, but we are back. We have got a national championship preview show here today. My name is Blake Biscardi, and I am your host. Indiana, Miami. The spread sits in this game at 8.5 in favor of the Hoosiers. A lot to discuss when we look about this game, and we see two different paths of how these two teams got here. So we'll set the stage a little bit before we get into the game breakdown and then eventually pick this matchup at the end of the episode. So Indiana, this team has been steady Eddie all year long. They are 15-0. This is the most wins in school history. And now they have a shot to get 16. So that would be the most wins by a college football team of all time. 16-0 for Indiana if they can win this game. They have been the number one ranked team for this entire college football playoff run. Obviously, because they're the number one seed, there are no new rankings. But Indiana beats Ohio State in early December to become the number one ranked team in the country. There was some debate before the game against the Buckeyes that this was the best team, but that's why you play the game, so you can get on-field results. So now it's inarguable. What happened for Indiana here? Okay, we're waiting and waiting to see. Okay, yes, Indiana's good. There was a lot of question marks around which team would be this year's Indiana. This year's Indiana is still Indiana, although this year's Indiana is better than last year's Indiana. And we saw that when the Hoosiers went to Eugene. That was really when they stepped onto the map. In front of a national audience in Eugene, Oregon, they ended a multiple-year winning streak at home for the Ducks. And they go in there, they dominate. They get a pick six, and they win the game by 10 points. And you're like, okay, you know what? We respect Oregon. But Indiana is legit. This is a real team. They are a contender. But how much of a contender are they? How good is Oregon? These were some of the questions that were surrounding Indiana. But Fernando Mendoza, Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Kurt Signetti just steadied the ship all year long. They had to gain the respect of everyone in college football. So you look at a team like Indiana versus Ohio State. Ohio State could beat you any which way. Ohio State didn't have to score 50 points a game to go out and win. They could squeeze you with defense. They can win with offense. They could do it either way. Indiana, though, on the other hand, chose to be dominant and score as many points as they could and win by wide margins to gain the respect. Their foot has been on the gas all season long. They have been playing in fifth gear all season long. We have seen them at their best consistently throughout the entire season. And then you're looking for, okay, when's this team really going to get hit in the mouth and what's going to happen? How are they going to respond? They're in Happy Valley. They're down on the final drive. Mendoza throws a pick late in the game, but they end up getting the ball back. And Omar Cooper makes one of the best catches you'll probably ever see in the sport in the back of the end zone, and Indiana wins the game. Now you're like, okay, this is a collision course with Ohio State. Then they play the Buckeyes. Omar Cooper gets hurt in that game early. Mendoza takes a monster shot on the first play of the game, but ends up being okay and battling back. And Mendoza makes all the plays he needs to win the game. Indiana didn't do it flashy, but they made the plays necessary to win the game. Ohio State did not play their best in that game. The Buckeyes wanted another shot, but Indiana found a way to get it done. So in the big adversity moments, in the big question mark moments, in those defining moments, Indiana was the team that has gotten it done. They figured out a way in Happy Valley to be resilient. They burst onto the scene in Eugene to beat the Ducks. And then against Ohio State, they need big conversions on third down. They need to make field goals, and they do. Now they get into the college football playoff, and they've been completely dominant. Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman Trophy, and they get better, and he gets better. after that? Is it the Heisman jinx? That's what everyone's asking. No, Indiana and Fernando Mendoza have gotten better. They have stayed focused, dominating Alabama in the Rose Bowl, dominating Oregon in the semifinal, in the Peach Bowl. Now you have Miami in their home stadium. Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, and this ferocious defensive line. It wreaked havoc against Ohio State's offensive line. It repeated the same thing against Ole Miss. Now they get one of the best offensive lines in the country in Indiana. How much can they affect Fernando Mendoza? That's the big story. We'll get to that in a minute. But for Miami, they entered this game at 13-2. Miami was left for dead after losing to SMU. And like, okay, there's not going to be a lot of hope here for the Hurricanes. They start ranked 18th in the college football playoff rankings. And you see this team reeling in the middle of the year. Then all of a sudden, November hits. And that foot started getting on the gas. And they start pressing and pressing and pressing. And here they come. And they start climbing up the rankings. And they have this head-to-head with Notre Dame. And you're wondering, okay, when's that ever going to get into effect? Are they ever going to get evaluated in a cluster? How are these two teams going to fall when it gets to this college football playoff ranking? Because Notre Dame is well ahead of Miami, starting at 10. And there was a gap. And there was a smaller gap. And then a little bit smaller. And then finally, the penultimate rankings, there's still a team in between, BYU. Then conference championship weekends happens. Neither team plays, but BYU loses. Now there's no team in between. Head-to-head matters. Miami gets into the college football playoff. Not a lot of people were expecting it, but it was one of those things that should happen in the eyes of many because there's an on-the-field direct result. Head-to-head, Miami beats Notre Dame. And the way the teams were playing, you could argue Notre Dame put together a better stretch after that game. But Miami won, and you have to honor that. And the committee did. The committee got it right. Now, do I believe Notre Dame could have been over James Madison? Sure, but the format's not set up that way. So they did what was correct, and Miami gets into this game against Ohio State, or against Texas A&M first. They win it, then they get Ohio State. They win that, now they're getting Ole Miss. Now they're here against Indiana. No one thought Miami was going to be here. People didn't think that they could win that game. They've been the underdog all the way in those first two games. And then they became the favorite against Ole Miss, and they handled the moment. Miami has risen to the occasion in this college football playoff, and they've played well because of that defensive line with Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, and then a ferocious attacking running game with Mark Fletcher, the running back. Carson Beck has not had to do anything spectacular. He's not had to do anything special. He's had to manage the game. He's had to play like a veteran, and he's done that. That's what Miami needs to win this game. Carson Beck is not going to win you this game by himself. He's just not. We were talking in the press conference the other day, and someone asked Carson Beck, about school, and he's like, I haven't had class in 2 years. I graduated. That's a big perspective thing. Transfers from Georgia, graduated 2 years ago. He's watching film. Miami's entering this game with confidence and swagger. They were the underdog. They're the big underdog in this game, 8.5. And you sit here, the game's in your home stadium, and everyone's doubting you. Miami's going to come ready to play in this game, and Indiana needs to be ready. And we're going to look at these different storylines in this matchup between the two head coaches. And we know Kurt Cignetti's meteoric rise coming from James Madison, bringing transfers with him, and what he's done with Indiana in 2 years is absolutely remarkable. Mario Cristobal, people didn't think he could do this. They didn't think he could get to this level. He was told he was just a recruiter or just a great coach, but not a developer, not one that could win the big game, not one that could get to this moment. Well, they've put together a spectacular run so far, but so is Indiana. And only one team can finish it as champions. So which team's going to get to tell their story? Let's break this down a little bit. The big matchup in this game is going to be Indiana's quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, against this defensive line for Miami. It's been the big storyline throughout this whole playoff run. Both of these two teams are playing their best football. So whose best is going to be better? Football is a game of matchups. Styles make fights. Do I believe that Ohio State had a better team than Miami, roster-wise and talent-wise and coaching-wise? Yes. But that doesn't always matter because Miami had a matchup advantage that exploited something for Ohio State. Could you argue that Alabama had more talent on their roster than Indiana? Yes. But Indiana dominates the game and wins by 35. Your head can almost spin a little bit. Indiana has a lot of veterans. They've seen a lot. But Miami has the X factor. They have the X factor with that defensive line with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. If they can wreak havoc on Fernando Mendoza, rush him in the pocket, get him out of his rhythm, that's going to be their best chance to attack, potentially force turnovers, but to stay in the game. Xavier Lucas, though, for Miami, is going to miss the first half because of that targeting call in the semifinal. So Mendoza, who's great at picking apart defenses, Miami has to get pressure on him to have a chance in this game. There's a couple keys Miami needs things to happen in this game for it to go their way. And that's not to say that Indiana is going to dominate this game. They just need specific things to happen. And they're capable of all these specific things happening. The first one is getting pressure to affect Fernando Mendoza. They have to be able to figure out how they can rush him, speed him up, or get hands in his face the entire night so he's not comfortable. Because if he can just sit back, he's playing well enough to just pick apart the defense, especially not having Xavier Lucas, the cornerback, on the outside early on in the game. So Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt have been outstanding for Indiana this entire season. That's two X factor level receivers. You're missing one of your top cornerbacks. How do you mitigate this? What do? You have to be able to get pressure. Because again, if you're not getting pressure in Mendoza's face, he's got a backup cornerback on against one of those two great receivers. He's going to be able to exploit that. And maybe Indiana gets up early and they jump on Miami, and Miami just can't get out of the hole. That's a huge key for the Hurricanes early, especially in that first half without Lucas, to get pressure in Mendoza's face. Also for Miami, the running game with Mark Fletcher has to be on. Miami is going to need to run for at least 125 to 160 yards in this game. It cannot be on the shoulders of Carson Beck. If it's on the shoulders of Carson Beck, Indiana's going to win the game, unless Beck has the game of his life. So Mark Fletcher has been dominant in this playoff stretch. Miami's offensive line has played really well. That has to continue. Indiana has a great defensive line. Daly's not going to be in because he's hurt. Can they exploit that? Can Miami exploit that? Fletcher has run for over 100 yards twice in this playoff stretch. Mark Fletcher running the football is going to allow a little bit of control for Miami on offense to sustain drives, to keep the Indiana offense, which has been red hot all season long, off the field. Miami's going to have to find a way to possess the ball, which means you have to have an effective running game. And you have to have a quarterback who can make the on-schedule throws. He has to make the routine throws. He has to. Beck does not have to do anything special, but he's got to make the routine throws. He's got to play like a veteran. He's got to know he's seen a lot of football. He has to be at his best in his home stadium. He has to. It's non-negotiable. And on the flip side for Indiana, score. Mendoza sitting back and being protected by a great offensive line led by Pat Coogan. Mind you, who won the offensive MVP. This offensive line has to protect Mendoza and give him time, because if he gives him time, it will be a long day for Miami if he has time. So I'm looking at this game for Indiana. How do they handle this moment in this national championship game? They have proven all year that they can handle it. They're the favorite on a big stage, but they're going to be the road team. This is going to be a road game for Indiana. And you're seeing this. And every time they've had the poise, this is a veteran roster. This is a head coach who's not focused on any of the extracurriculars. This is a quarterback who's not focused on the extracurriculars. They are here for football, for the love of their brother. Indiana will be prepared for this game. You're going to see their best. We've seen it all year, steady. Miami hasn't shown their best all year. They're playing it now. They're going to have it. Best on best Monday night. The championship pedigrees of these two programs are vastly different. But neither of these teams have been on this stage in this century. After Miami lost in the national championship game to Ohio State, they've not been relevant. But Miami as a program has won 5 national titles. This could be their 6th if they can get it done. Indiana not won a national title. Miami in the 80s and 90s was a machine. It was a powerhouse. Even in 2000, 2001, 2002, really, really elite program. They've fallen off for over 20 years. So now they're back on the national scene. They're 60 minutes away from a national championship. It's at your home stadium. Huge opportunity for this program. The fan base is hungry for it. And you're facing Indiana, who's in the territory of best college football story ever written. I don't know if they could be the best team of all time, but this would be one of the best stories that you would probably see a movie about if they were to hoist that trophy and win the national championship, because of what Curt Cignetti has been able to do rebuilding this program over the last 2 years. I have tremendous respect for what both of these head coaches have done, but especially Curt Cignetti. There's a lot going into this matchup for both of these teams, but the moment here is going to shape a lot. Because if Indiana wins, yes, we have all the personal Indiana stories where this program's not won a national championship. It's the first one, this 2-year rebuild, all that. Think about the big picture here. 3 straight national championships for the Big Ten. And if Miami wins, that's a national title for the ACC, but it's, again, 3 straight national titles the SEC has not won, which happens regardless either way. The landscape of college football has shifted. Now, the Big Ten is the premier conference in the sport right now, but Miami itself, the ACC, is not one of the premier conferences right now. Yes, it's a P4 conference. It's not deep. It's got a team here or there. This is Miami's way to separate itself from that conference and step into the big boy echelon of college football. If they can get this done, you separate from the ACC, you're the premier program, and you're on the same playing fields now, recruiting-wise, NIL-wise, talent-wise, coach-wise. You can be in the same conversations as Ohio State. You could be in the same conversations as Georgia. You could be in the same conversations as Alabama. The landscape has shifted. It's just not those big dogs anymore. Miami has found a way to come back thanks to Mario Cristobal. And if they can get this done, that's going to help them recruiting. It's going to continue to elevate the program that's already doing extremely well. Now winning 13 games. They either finished with 13 or 14 wins. Think about that. And potentially a national title. So we see this game and we're evaluating it and we're evaluating it and we're evaluating it and we're looking at all these different matchups. And yes, Indiana's been super dominant. Miami's won the close games. The spread is sitting at 8.5. And you think about, it's like, okay, can Indiana blow them out again? If things go their way like they've gone with turnovers, yes, Indiana can. I just don't think that that's the case. I legitimately think that Indiana is going to show up in this game, but so is Miami. It's a national championship game. Miami's worked too hard to get to this stage. I think that they show up in this game. And I think Miami can cover. They can keep it closer. But I'm going to take Indiana to win the game, win the national championship, become 16-0. Fernando Mendoza gets the hat trick of conference championship game, Heisman Trophy, and national title, not to mention a semifinal and a quarterfinal victory along the way. A ton of hardware, most decorated player in Indiana history after that. Huge for Curt Cignetti. Massive respect for what he's doing. I like Indiana to win the game. I like Miami to cover. I do think that the game is going to be competitive. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think we're going to see times where it feels like fireworks, and there's also going to be times where it's a chess match, and you're like, okay, who's going to make that next move that gets their team on the board or gets down the red zone or finds the turnover? There's going to be the element of the cat and mouse game. I think we're going to see a lot of different versions of the game inside the game here between these two teams. I really do think it's going to vary. But for Miami, they have to do those things if they want a chance to win. And I do think they're going to give themselves an opportunity to win. They need it close in the fourth quarter, and then they got to figure out a way to close. Indiana hasn't had to play a tough game yet in this playoff. They've not had to play close. If Miami keeps it close and they can turn up that pressure with the defensive line, can they affect Mendoza enough to force a late mistake like they did against Penn State? But can they force it enough to where they can win the game? Because Indiana still found a way. How do you affect Indiana and stop them from finding a way? It's hard when you have a roster full of fourth, fifth, and sixth-year guys on it. Indiana is a very, very veteran-heavy team. But there's a way. And Miami has the pieces to figure it out. But Indiana has been outstanding all year. They're well coached. They're disciplined. They're physical, fast, intelligent, smart decision makers. They know nothing Miami's going to do is going to fool them. But can the Hurricanes do it effectively enough to affect the game and the outcome? That's the big question. There's a lot. And it's going to be a great matchup. And I think Indiana is going to be crowned national champions when this is all said and done. They're going to be 16-0. Cignetti's going to get a title and a ring. The Big Ten's going to have 3 in a row. 3 different teams, Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. An incredible run for the Hoosiers. That's how I see it. We're going to be back to break this game down after we see it. That show will be out later in the week. This is a big one. Obviously, it's the national championship. But this is a big one because it's going to affect the next few years of the sport because of what it's going to do for both of these programs, regardless of which team wins. This is more than just a game. This is huge. It's Miami's chance to be back relevant. It's Indiana's chance to say, hey, we can win a title too. There is a lot of power in the stories that are going to be told from whichever champion wins this game. Miami's going to keep it close. Indiana's going to win. That's my breakdown. That's how I see the game playing out. I think Mendoza does enough, just like he did against Ohio State, to make enough plays to win the game. Give me the Hoosiers, 16-0, a title for Cignetti and Mendoza, and an incredible story across college football. Guys, we appreciate you listening to the show today. Make sure you're checking us out on social media at the Silver Bulletin, at Saturday Cadence, tsilverbulletin.com, at tsilverbulletin on all socials, at Saturday Cadence on socials. If you want to follow me personally, at Blake Biscardi, there's a lot of good content there on Twitter, TikTok, and then if you want to see the Instagram, got a little bit of stuff on there too. Guys, enjoy this national championship game. We'll be back with some more intel on the transfer portal, how these classes have gone for some of these top contenders, what moves have been made, coaching changes that are happening, and plenty more. As we know, no offseason in this sport. The news cycle is year-round. A lot to get to. Spring ball, going to be on the horizon. Last order of business before we get out of here tonight. We have to end Monday national championship games. It should be on a Saturday night. We should not have to play this game on a Monday, but we'll fix that another day. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to the channel, sharing it with your friends. We appreciate all that you guys do, helping us do what we do. We love it. College football is the best sport in the world. Enjoy the national championship game. We'll be back to break it down, and then we'll transition into more coverage as we get into more of this transfer portal, more of the spring ball. But we will see you on the recap show, guys. God bless.